up, everybody? Ben hopping on here to talk about porn. Let's go. Let's go deep into the shadow, deep into the repressed areas of our lives, of our society. Bringing light to where the sun don't shine. That's what we do. I'd love to just start by sharing a little bit about my personal journey with porn. When I was 10 years old, I was first exposed to porn in a neighbor's basement. And we were looking at his older brother's collection of porn. And I remember at the time the massive firing of chemicals and serotonin, oxytocin, all this, the dopamine hits, my nervous system buzzing. I was high as fuck. And unbeknownst to me, I was taking on a lot of deep programming the moment that happened. And that programming followed me well into my 20s and into my early 30s. And, one thing that really affected me about porn early on was this belief, as a prepubescent preteen, that big cocks were what women wanted. And I already had a pattern of isolation at this time and unworthiness, and it was just driven deep down by porn and by being programmed to think that, the bigger your cock was, the more desirable you were as a man. That level of unworthiness and a belief that I wasn't worthy actually of being received sexually was something that impacted me. I would have panic attacks if I tried to even talk to women. As I mentioned, I already was a bit isolated and never quite ever fit in with anybody. I was always the last kid chosen out in the field in PE, if you guys remember those days. It's kind of fucked up that teachers do that. They they pin kids against each other and who are the most desirable kids, and the last ones on the field are the unwanted ones. That was me. And I actually went deep into building computers, video games, and of course with the porn, I just went into a deep dark hole, honestly, through my teenage years. Even though I would show up in school, I was the rebel. I was, I was like the problem child, always getting suspended and always in trouble, really just trying to get attention. But deep down, the pornography was one of the crucial pieces of my programming at a young age that really wreaked havoc in my life. And granted, in my early 20s, I was able to start to figure out ways of coping with my anxiety with women. Also, I was drinking a lot at the time, and that played a huge role. And I ended up being married. And even during the time that I was married, though, and throughout my 20s, I tried to go to Sexaholics Anonymous. I was deep in religion even at the time for a long time, and doing everything I could, surrounding myself with as many tools and support systems as possible to fight this thing, to fight my addiction, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. It was like the more that I fought it, the stronger it got. And what's that saying? What we resist persists. And that was exactly my experience. And I know this now to be true in the work that I do. It's 100% that way. You can look up pendulum theory. All about this. It's just what we send our energy into feeds that which we are resisting, whether we're drawn towards it or repulsing it. Feeding any energy into something is actually magnetizing it towards us. So it wasn't until, honestly, I just stumbled into semen retention and some of the basic Taoist sexual alchemy works by Montauk Chia, and starting to stumble across tantric practices and this whole concept of sacred sexuality, that I really began to shed over time my desire for porn, to a point where now, it could be put up right in front of me, and I could think it's beautiful. I can even get turned on by it, but I don't have a desire to really seek it out because I feel so much pleasure in my day-to-day life. I have a self-pleasure practice. And when I'm with a partner, I have a devotional sexual cultivation practice. And I feed that. I devote myself to that. And it's a pathway to God. Ultimately, it's a pathway to the divine, to levels of bliss and connection and peace and fulfillment beyond anything that porn could ever give me. And it feels so good to say that, and that's why I've given my life to this work, to helping men break free from these patterns, from this programming, from the absence of sexual education that we had, truly. We all had middle school anatomy and porn. Same goes for most women too. And we're, without realizing it, I knew that I didn't know it at the time, but I was reenacting porn scenes, and that's what most of us are doing. And there's nothing wrong with that, with that very primal, sexual, masculine, penetrative, rock hard erection based approach to sexuality. There's nothing wrong with that. And there is an entire world beyond that of pleasure, of exploration, of orgasm, truly. So, one of my teachers said, if you have a glass that's half full of water and you're trying to fill that glass, he said, you don't focus on scooping the air out. You just bring in more water. Just fill that baby up and let it overflow. And that's a lot of the approach we take at Men's Sexual Mastery and in the work and in my coaching, is bringing in blisscipline, bringing in devotional, pleasure-based practices, so that when you have that impulse to look at porn or to, you have that sexual Jing energy building up, you have an outlet for it that can be conscious, that can be in service to your goals, to your partnership, to your deeper levels of pleasure, actually, ultimately. Granted, in the beginning, there's withdrawals that can happen, there's a weaning process, and it takes time to rewire our brains and our nervous systems to open up to these new levels of pleasure. But gradually, little by little, the taste for porn just slowly goes away, honestly, in my opinion. It just happens like without any effort. It's just a byproduct of the work you're doing internally. Same goes for partners, for attracting the ideal partner. A lot of guys have said this. Check out our testimonials on YouTube on Men's Sexual Mastery. There's a brother Langston who hopped in there not too long ago talking about how subtle these shifts were as he was doing these practices. And like a partner, he had an intention of meeting a partner, but it just happened as an accident, happened as a byproduct of doing the deep inner work. And the same goes for, breaking free of porn addiction. It's an afterthought. It's a byproduct. It's nothing that we even resist. It's nothing that we even spend any time feeling guilty or shame or fighting with. Like, what we fight feeds it, And so, a lot of this, honestly, I use the metaphor too of like learning to eat really good food. If some of you guys have been on the path of shifting your diet and breaking free from lots of processed foods and sugars and carbs and all that stuff, like, sure, there's a time period where your body is just reacclimating and your more subtle senses are coming online, of taste, of smell, of enjoyment. But there comes a time, and you may go back to your old patterns of eating junk food, shit food, but there comes a time when you're eating like grass-fed, local, let's say like dairy creme brulee versus like eating a Starburst. Once you've tasted the good shit, it just doesn't even interest you to go back to the cheap sugars that also make you feel like shit. Same goes for porn. Once you touch these states of ecstasy, of bliss, of holding the sexual energy and moving it not just in the bedroom, but actually in your day-to-day life, like I'm literally feeling my fingers tingling and my body buzzing right now, speaking this to you. Like, swear to God, this pleasure, this sense of well-being, this subtle ability to make love, not just with our partners, but with life itself, is what is at the core of these practices, is what is at the core of Taoist sexual alchemy and the path of Tantra, of sacred sexuality. So, if you're interested in diving deeper and tasting the good stuff and allowing it to replace an addiction to junk, message me or check out our website, check out our training programs. This is what I'm here for. This is what I've given my life for, because my sexual journey has been one of the most painful experiences of my life. My porn addiction just stripped me bare. And I'm so fucking grateful to be free of it. I'm so grateful to be coming full circle into connecting the sacred and the sexual and bringing all these pieces together into deeper levels of pleasure and connection and fulfillment and deeper relationships and meaning and more energy and creativity and life force and just more testosterone, masculine energy. It's this work, I say it time and time again, it goes to the root of it all. The fucking root of it all. And there's never been a time in human history like now to go here, to have the tools, to have the knowledge. You know, Montauk Chia only published these books in Taoist alchemy back in, I think, like the late 80s or early 90s. He started coming out with this stuff. And before that time, these were secret technologies, you know, energetic, psychosomatic, spiritual technologies that were held by the elite, the ruling classes. And you'd have to pay, you know, huge amounts of money to access even just the smallest little piece of information, little tool. So only in the last, 40 or so years has this stuff come online. And only now is it reaching the mainstream. And I'm really excited to see what scientific studies have, that are going to be showing up, I'm sure, in coming years, coming behind this information and these practices, just like they are with meditation and, all these other things right now. So I have no doubt, that this stuff is the most potent, I call it the greatest biohack of all time, and who doesn't want to be an epic lover? Who doesn't want to be the most embodied sexual being in the world? Like, who doesn't want to have sex like a rock star and be aligned deeply in our integrity? You can have your cake and eat it too. And that's what is waiting for you in this path of sacred sexuality. So if you're interested, hit me up, check out the website. I'd love to dive in with you. I'm always game for talking with guys about this stuff and their journeys and what's coming up for them. Appreciate you all tuning in. Wishing you a beautiful evening. See you soon.